The film begins with a young detective named Junyoung waiting for a drug dealer. At that time, he and his police team are all set to catch the dealer as soon as he shows up. Finally, the dealer arrives at a nightclub. Soon after, Junyoung and his team quickly move in to arrest him. But amidst the chaos, Junyoung notices a beautiful woman nearby. Then the story jumps back 7 years. It tells us about Junyoung's past when he was about to take an important exam to get into Sujin University. On a train, a woman named Yongjae sees a man behaving inappropriately towards another woman. She takes action and reports him to the police. At the police station, Junyoung also arrives with evidence against the man. After sorting things out, both Junyoung and Yongjae rush to take their university exam. Junyoung aces the exam, making his family proud. But sadly, Yongjae fails the exam, which disappoints her brother Sujae. But despite that setback, Yongjae, who lives alone with her older brother, doesn't lose hope. Even though she only graduated from high school and didn't get into Sujin University, she's determined to succeed. Since she couldn't go to university, Yongjae decides to work at a little-known roadside salon. At the salon, she meets up with some friends from high school who are now in college. They come by to get their hair done. Later on, Yongjae's 3 friends go on a group date where Junyoung also happens to be. Because they're short on people, Yongjae gets invited along. On the other hand, Junyoung, who doesn't have a date, ends up meeting Yongjae. They decide to go on their first date together. The next day, Junyoung and his friends, led by a wealthy guy named Sung-yoon, try to find their dates again. But Junyoung can't find Yongjae. Then, Sung-yoon's girlfriend, Sogi, gives him an address where Yongjae might be. With that address, Junyoung finally finds Yongjae just as she's finishing work. As a thank you for their date, she gives Junyoung a free haircut. Then, she kisses him. Thanks to the kiss, the next day, they officially became a couple. Soon after, they attended an event at a place meant for Sujin University students. Junyoung's friends were dancing in pairs to win some fancy prizes. As for Junyoung and Yongjae, now officially together, also joined the competition. Thanks to Yongjae's great dancing skills, they won. During the interview part, Yongjae, who only finished high school, got nervous when asked about her major. Then Sogi, who was jealous because she lost, loudly said that Yongjae wasn't a Sujin student, but just a girl who didn't go to college. This caused a big misunderstanding. Junyoung tried hard to clear things up, but Yongjae avoided him. Junyoung, not wanting things to end like that, went to Yongjae's house. There he'd explain that it didn't matter to him that she only finished high school. But Yongjae didn't want to continue dating him because she thought he couldn't protect her as a boyfriend. Because of what happened, Junyoung, who didn't want to seem weak, decides to change his future. He decides to take an exam to join the police academy. Motivated by wanting to prove something to his ex, he works hard and finally graduates to become a police officer. After the nightclub incident, everyone there had to go to the police station for urine tests. During this, Yongjae approaches Junyoung with an innocent look, showing that Junyoung still has feelings for her. Now, Yongjae works as a hairstylist at a popular salon owned by her friend Ju-run. One day at the train station, Yongjae helps a blind man who was knocked over by a woman. When the woman starts getting angry at the blind man, Yongjae bravely stands up to her. As a result, the woman gets taken to the police station for causing trouble in public. When Yongjae saw the woman calling her backup, who happened to be a police officer, she got annoyed. So she asked the police staff to call Junyoung to help with the situation. After sorting things out, Junyoung and Yongjae finally got to spend time together after a long time apart. Then they ended up drinking together, and while they were drunk, Junyoung started talking about his feelings that he had kept hidden for 7 years. Suddenly, Junyoung asked Yongjae why she had broken up with him before. Yongjae, looking innocent, said she had no other choice. Hearing this made Junyoung even more disappointed. The next day, Junyoung wakes up at Yongjae's house. When he wakes up, Yongjae's brother Sujae gives him a cup of coffee and asks about a murder case in the southwest area where 14 people were killed. Being a police officer, Junyoung remembers this case. Then, Sujae tells him that this incident had changed both their lives. Meanwhile, when she was resting, Yongjae remembered what Sodi had done. After the dance party, Yongjae got news that his older brother had been in an accident. Sadly, the doctor said his brother's nerves were damaged, and he couldn't move his legs. Now, Yongjae, who's an orphan, has to take care of the family. Because of this, Yongjae broke up with Junyoung, thinking he couldn't be lazy, especially when it came to spending money. One evening after work, Jun-young approached Soo-jae, who now sells coffee by the roadside. He asked why Soo-jae had asked about the murder case from 7 years ago. There, Soo-jae explained that when the criminal was caught 7 years ago, he, working nearby, fell from the 10th floor after hearing a gunshot. Since then, he couldn't walk, and Young-jae had to take care of him. After a kiss, Jun-young and Young-jae got back together. They spent time together at Jun-young's house, watching movies and eating. But their romantic moment is interrupted when Jun-young's parents suddenly show up. Luckily, Young-jae hides and Jun-young's parents don't suspect anything. They invite Jun-young to watch TV together. After they finished watching TV, Jun-young's younger sister, Ri-won, found a horror movie cassette that Jun-young supposedly didn't like. She asked him about it. At the same time, Young-jae, who needed to use the bathroom, came out of Jun-young's room, surprising everyone. With their parents' approval, they started to truly love each other, and their days were filled with happiness. One day, Young-jae got the job of styling the hair of a famous rising artist who was shooting his latest film. But after waiting for a long time, she found So-hee there instead, who had become a top artist. At that time, Young-jae was annoyed by So-hee's arrogance and decided to leave her job. On her way, Young-jae came across an old woman who needed help. Soon after, she and a man nearby quickly assisted the old woman. It seemed like the man was interested in Young-jae. Later, when the salon was closing, the man came by and asked Young-jae to style his hair. At that time, Jun-young happened to see this and found out the man was Dr. Choi, a famous doctor who admired Young-jae's work a lot. Dr. Choi even mentioned Young-jae's salon as the best he'd been to in an interview. Meanwhile, Jun-young went to visit Sung-yoon, who had become the successful owner of a famous bar. He went there to talk about his love life. Sung-yoon, being knowledgeable about love, suggested Jun-young should meet and talk to Young-jae for an explanation. But Jun-young, feeling disappointed, decided not to listen and chose to meet Young-jae secretly. On that day, Young-jae hadn't heard from Jun-young, so she tried calling and messaging him several times, but he never responded. Later, while she was leaving work and still thinking about him, she got hit by a motorbike. Luckily, Dr. Choi was there again to help her, which amazed her even more. The next day, while Jun-young and other police officers were on patrol, he saw Soo-jae at a gas station. Young-jae was also there and asked why Jun-young had been ignoring her messages. Jun-young, feeling jealous, didn't want to argue with her, but Young-jae kissed him to show she understood. Then they walked together, and Young-jae opened up about feeling stressed about some hairstyles for a fashion show. And Jun-young, being understanding, took her to the beach to help her let go of all her worries. The next day, there was a big fashion show that meant a lot for Young-jae. She worked really hard to style the model's hair perfectly, even So-hee's, who was the main model. After the show, Dr. Choi, who was close to So-hee, congratulated her. Meanwhile, So-hee, being rude, pushed Young-jae away to be alone with Dr. Choi. But Young-jae fought back because she didn't want to be disrespected, and they ended up fighting. Soon after, Jun-young arrived with flowers for Young-jae's success, but got silent when he saw her with Dr. Choi. His pain grew when Dr. Choi expressed his feelings for Young-jae. To stop this, Jun-young stepped in and introduced himself as Young-jae's boyfriend. Now, both Dr. Choi and Jun-young realized they had to compete for Young-jae's heart. The next day, Young-jae visited Jun-young's house with food to impress his parents, but Jun-young acted coldly towards her during the meal. Even when he drove her home, he admitted he was still upset because Young-jae smiled when Dr. Choi helped her. When Young-jae expressed her thoughts about Jun-young being too controlling, she tried to brush off yesterday's argument as not a big deal. But Jun-young got even more upset, and they ended up having a big fight. Eventually, Young-jae decided to get out of the car and be dropped off on the side of the road. Back at home, Young-jae's older brother understood what was going on between her and Jun-young. He advised and comforted her. He also warned Jun-young not to be selfish in his relationship with Young-jae so that they wouldn't repeat the same mistakes. On that day, Soo-jae sold his car to get something special for Young-jae's birthday. When evening came, exactly at midnight, Young-jae arrived home to a warm welcome from her brother. He had cooked her favorite food. Her brother suggested she call Jun-young to celebrate, but she didn't, leaving Jun-young waiting for her call all night. The next day, Jun-young, who had prepared a sweet necklace as a gift, decided not to meet Young-jae. Meanwhile, Young-jae, who was hoping to hear from Jun-young, was surprised when Dr. Choi showed up. He found out it was her birthday and took her to a fancy restaurant as a gift. At the restaurant, Sung-yoon was surprised to see Young-jae with another man. Being a good friend, he immediately told Junyoung about it. When Junyoung heard that his beloved girlfriend was with someone else, he hurried to the restaurant. When he got there, he felt really sad seeing Youngjae being romantic with Dr. Choi. Soon after, he called Youngjae outside and asked for an explanation. There, Youngjae explained that she had booked the restaurant for herself and Junyoung, but he disappeared without a word, which left her disappointed. Just then, Dr. Choi interrupted and said dinner with Youngjae wasn't over yet, leaving Junyoung silent. The next day, Junyoung went to Youngjae's house seeking advice from Soo-jae, but he ended up getting drunk and almost losing consciousness. As he was about to leave, he ran into Youngjae, who had just come home from work. In his drunken state, Junyoung apologized, which helped mend their relationship. He also gave Youngjae the necklace he hadn't had a chance to give her before. That morning, Youngjae woke up late for her first photo shoot, but Junyoung, being caring, came to pick her up on his motorcycle, making sure Youngjae didn't oversleep and miss the shoot. On that day, Youngjae participated in a photo shoot for a well-known magazine, gaining more recognition thanks to the recent fashion show. Meanwhile, Junyoung and his team were planning to catch a dangerous criminal in the afternoon. It was said that the criminal they were trying to catch had a thing for sexy women. So, Junyoung told his teammate Kim to dress provocatively. Once Kim confirmed the target was in the rundown apartment, she signaled Junyoung. Upon hearing this, Junyoung and his team rushed to arrest the criminal. But unfortunately, the target discovered Kim's disguise. When he confronted her, Junyoung intervened to save her. In the scuffle, Junyoung got knocked out and had to be taken to the hospital. After several hours, Junyoung regained consciousness at the hospital. Youngjae, who had just heard the news, rushed to see him. But to her dismay, when she arrived, she saw Junyoung with Kim, his junior. At the same time, Sung-yoon seems to have a soft spot for his employees. Even after work hours, he spends time with them. One of his employees is Ri-won, Junyoung's younger sister. After dropping her home, Sung-yoon goes straight to the hospital. There, he opens up about his feelings, admitting he likes someone who might be his soulmate in the future. However, he doesn't mention that he's talking about Junyoung's sister. Meanwhile, Junyoung, who is now thinking more maturely, realizes that if they keep acting immaturely, he won't be able to stay with Youngjae forever. So he rushes to Youngjae's house to talk things out. But when he gets there, Youngjae isn't home. Instead, Youngjae, who is also starting to think about adulthood, has gone back to the hospital to mend their relationship. The next day, after Junyoung was declared healthy, Youngjae and all the people he worked with went to an island to help the elderly living there. On the other hand, Dr. Choi, who was invited by Ju-run, also joined them. When they arrived, they started helping the residents for free. One elderly person asked Youngjae to visit his house because his wife couldn't leave. There, Youngjae cut the old woman's hair and felt touched seeing the love between the elderly couple. Meanwhile, in Seoul, Sung-yoon, who has developed feelings for Ri-won, gets upset when two teenagers tease her. At first, Sung-yoon tried to hide his feelings because he felt embarrassed about liking his co-worker. But when the teasing got worse, he decided to kiss Ri-won and introduced himself as her boyfriend. When the evening came, everyone on the team was having a great time enjoying the beautiful night. But unfortunately, Junyoung didn't feel happy because he kept seeing Youngjae alone with Dr. Choi. At that moment, Junyoung felt really sad about it. Even on the way back home, he avoided Youngjae because he didn't want to feel disappointed again. That day, Junyoung decided he didn't want to feel disappointed anymore. He planned a surprise for Youngjae in his car trunk. But when they met, unexpectedly, Youngjae said they should end their relationship. She felt that Junyoung was too good for her, and she didn't want him to feel disappointed because of her anymore. At the same time, Soo-jae is going through a tough time. He unexpectedly runs into his ex-girlfriend after not seeing her for a long time. After Soo-jae lost his leg in an accident, his girlfriend stood by him and accepted him as he was. But then he overheard a conversation between her parents who didn't approve of their relationship. Despite this, she stayed loyal to him. However, Soo-jae, not wanting to be a burden, decided to end the relationship. Now, let's go back to the present. Even though Junyoung is feeling really down, he still keeps his professionalism at work. On that day, he was on duty again, trying to catch a criminal who had escaped the day before. But sadly, when they were about to confront the criminals, Junyoung's team lost their weapons. Once all the work was done, Junyoung returned home feeling empty, and to his surprise, when he arrived, he saw his younger sister kissing Sung-yoon. The next day, because of Junyoung's success in catching the most dangerous criminal in Korea, he's going to get a special award from the police. There's even news that he's going to be promoted to regional police chief. But surprisingly, on that same day, Junyoung officially quits the police force. He goes to the salon where Young-jae works, but he can only watch her from afar. It seems like Junyoung's fate is to admire her from a distance without being able to love her. That night, Junyoung talks to Soo-jae about his recent breakup with Young-jae. Soo-jae gets angry when he finds out that Young-jae ended things. He wants to convince her to give their relationship another chance. But Junyoung refuses, saying that forcing things won't make them happy in the long run. By the end of their conversation, Junyoung tells Soo-jae that he's leaving for Portugal the next morning to try to forget about Young-jae. He assures Soo-jae that he's truly ready to let go of Young-jae and move on with his life. The next day, Junyoung went to Portugal to follow his dream of becoming a famous chef worldwide. There he enjoys the beauty of Portugal and works hard to chase his dreams, using all his savings to study with famous chefs. Meanwhile, Kim, who has recovered from her broken leg, wants to thank Junyoung for saving her. But when she goes to his workplace, she finds out that he's resigned and gone to Portugal. At that time, Detective Se-yeon tells Kim about Junyoung's current situation. One afternoon, Junyoung sees a familiar face on the roadside, and it's Kim. They spend the afternoon together at a beachside cafe. As the day comes to an end at the airport, Officer Kim, who's heading back to Korea, finally gathers the courage to confess her feelings to Junyoung. It's been a year since Junyoung went to Portugal after that incident, and back in Korea, Sung-yoon has married Ri-won. They now have a beautiful little girl. Junyoung's days in Portugal passed perfectly, especially with Kim, who is now officially his girlfriend. Time flew by so fast that it didn't feel like 3 years had passed. After finishing cooking school in Portugal, Junyoung decides to come back to Korea. After getting all the cooking knowledge, Junyoung opens his first restaurant in Korea. It's themed around couples, with a special table just for people on dates. The restaurant becomes really popular, thanks to its delicious food, and soon it's well known all over Korea. To celebrate his success, Junyoung proposes to Kim with a sweet ring. One evening, as Junyoung is getting his restaurant ready, he's surprised to see Young-jae and Dr. Choi coming in to eat. But he can't stand being around Young-jae, so he decides to leave them alone. During dinner, Dr. Choi unexpectedly announces that it's his last dinner with Young-jae. Dinner goes smoothly, and soon they leave. At an intersection, they say goodbye as if they might never see each other again. Meanwhile, in a fancy hospital, Joo-run is seen consulting a very experienced doctor. The doctor reveals that she is suffering from serious cancer and will die soon if she doesn't have surgery right away. Joo-run is shocked and panicked at first, but she manages to calm down and accept the news with dignity. However, despite her efforts to accept the illness gracefully, she's deeply affected, especially when she sees another woman losing her hair because of cancer. To ease her mind, Joo-run decides to visit Young-jae at her house. But when she gets there, she finds Soo-jae alone. Unable to bear the burden alone anymore, Joo-run opens up to Soo-jae about her condition. The next day, while out shopping, Young-jae almost witnesses a child getting hit by a car. Annoyed with the driver, she scolds the child and throws an egg at the car. As a result, she ends up at the police station. In a twist of fate, Junyoung, now working as a police officer, hears about the incident and comes to rescue Young-jae. While walking together, Junyoung is surprised to learn that Young-jae has divorced Dr. Choi. Junyoung then took Young-jae to his restaurant. There he served spicy food they used to enjoy together when they were dating. Young-jae shared that after marrying Dr. Choi, they moved to Portugal. In Portugal, Young-jae had a happy marriage, and they were blessed with a beautiful daughter in their first year. But their happiness shattered when their daughter died at the age of 4. Her life fell apart after that, and she even caused a scene at her own wedding due to drinking. Now back in Korea, they decided to divorce. Later, Kim visited Junyoung at the restaurant after returning from duty. There, Junyoung proudly introduced Kim as his fiancée, without mentioning Young-jae as his ex-girlfriend. On his way home, Junyoung unexpectedly runs into his former police teammates. They decide to celebrate their unplanned reunion by eating at a roadside stall, which happens to be owned by a fugitive Junyoung caught years ago. During the meal, Junyoung invites them to his upcoming wedding with Kim. The next day, Young-jae meets Kim at a cafe. There, Kim is surprised to learn that Young-jae was Junyoung's ex-girlfriend. To prevent any disruption to her relationship, Kim sets Young-jae up on a blind date with a friend. Though it's tough, Young-jae accepts because she knows she can't be a part of Junyoung's life anymore. On a sunny morning, Junyoung gathers his courage to visit Kim's family in Busan. He feels nervous seeing her family, who seem intimidating. His anxiety grows when Kim's father suggests they drink together. At first, Junyoung is hesitant, but he feels pressure to comply. Despite his fear of getting too drunk and embarrassing himself, Junyoung reluctantly drinks to avoid upsetting Kim's father. After meeting, Kim and some other police officers went to eat at Junyoung's restaurant. During the meal, Kim's friend, Ji-yoon, mentioned Young-jae's blind date, which Kim had set up for her younger brother. Junyoung fell silent upon hearing this, feeling disappointed that Kim made decisions without discussing it first. Meanwhile, after meeting with Kim, Young-jae went to Ju-run's salon to catch up. However, she found Ju-run deep in thought and alone. Ju-run expressed how lonely her life had been since Young-jae left years ago. She had turned to drinking and spending recklessly, which led to her being diagnosed with cancer. After sharing her struggles, Ju-run asked Young-jae to cut her hair. Feeling weighed down, Young-jae returned home, realizing that important people in her life were leaving her. At the same time, annoyed by Kim's actions, Junyoung chose to distance himself from her. Then he received a call from Young-jae asking for help. Junyoung rushed to her location and found her drunk. He helped her and took her back to his apartment. In the apartment, as Junyoung was about to leave, he noticed a cut on Young-jae's hand. She explained that after losing her beloved child, she had once considered doing something drastic due to her deep sadness. Meanwhile, Ju-run's cancer was worsening, and she was receiving treatment in the hospital. At the same time, Young-jae's older brother, who had never met her before, arrived at her apartment. He was disappointed to see Young-jae's life in shambles. On the other hand, Junyoung's family was celebrating the upcoming marriage of their son. However, Junyoung himself wasn't feeling happy, still upset with Kim's actions. Then he decided to skip dinner and be alone to clear his mind. When they got back to the restaurant, Ri-won opened up about her life. She revealed that even though she and Sung-yoon have children together, they're not officially married because she's afraid divorce might ruin their relationship. But now, seeing Sung-yoon's commitment, she's starting to consider marrying him soon. Meanwhile, Kim felt disappointed when she saw Junyoung with Young-jae. At that time, Junyoung lied that he was at home, which disappointed Kim even more. She couldn't understand why Junyoung hid the truth about Young-jae from her. She was also upset because when Young-jae was considering an arranged marriage to avoid causing problems in their relationship, Junyoung scolded her harshly. On the other hand, Junyoung meets Young-jae again, who wants to congratulate him on his upcoming marriage to Kim. Third, Young-jae promises to leave Korea forever to avoid burdening Junyoung in the future. The next day, it was finally Junyoung's wedding day. His family had been preparing for this special day with great care. Junyoung himself waited for Kim in front of his apartment. But surprisingly, he decided to cancel the wedding, and Kim reluctantly accepted his decision. She understood the difficulties Junyoung was going through and apologized for pushing him too hard. When Junyoung returned home, his family was confused because Kim wasn't with him. He explained that he had called off the wedding, but didn't fully explain why. His father became very angry and even hit him, thinking Junyoung had brought shame to the family's name. Meanwhile, Young-jae visited her hometown, which used to bring her happiness. But now, that happiness is gone forever. After a few weeks passed, Junyoung's failed marriage led to him being kicked out of his home and disowned by his father. Meanwhile, Ju-run and Soo-jae found some happiness living together in the same house, following Young-jae's advice to take care of each other. When Christmas came around, Junyoung visited an elderly couple on an island, the same ones he had visited with Young-jae before. He was surprised to find Young-jae there too. He learned that the old man's wife had passed away the day after Young-jae had cut her hair. Then, they spent the day together at the old man's house and then went home. On that cold night, Junyoung gathered his courage to return to his parents' house after 3 weeks of being away. His father's heart finally softened, and he accepted Junyoung back as his son. Long story short, winter has passed, and now it's spring. Sung-yoon and Ri-won's family is expecting a new member, and Ri-won is ready to marry Sung-yoon officially. On the same day, Young-jae dressed up like a bride and received congratulations from colleagues. Meanwhile, Junyoung looked like he was getting ready for a wedding too. It turns out Ju-run and Soo-jae were getting married that day. After the wedding, they both decided to continue searching for the meaning of life on their own paths. The film ends. The moral lesson from this film is if you cancel your wedding, make sure your dad's not around to give you a lecture, and maybe invest in some earmuffs for your family gatherings.